Hey, Reese here. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Communication Breakdown. This week I'm talking to the Dutch prog rock band Focus. Focus changed the entire scene of prog rock with their two hit singles, House of the King and Hawkins Pocus. They've recently celebrated 50 years together and their latest album, Focus 11, came out just last year. They joined me over Zoom from Netherlands to talk about their huge and expansive career. Enjoy. So Thijs, when you guys started out, the music of Focus was a little bit different to what we know Focus as today. Was it true that you guys used to do covers of Traffic songs and Bob Dylan songs when you first started out?
Yeah, that was part of it, and also own material. And the first record we did was with English song lyrics. So it was not merely instrumental as it became later. So, you know, it was like a singing rock group. And the singing was not so fantastic, I must say. So the change into a merely instrumental group was obvious and was a good choice, a good decision, you know.
I'd read that you said, I think it was after the first Focus album, you decided that singing English lyrics in a Dutch accent sort of dampened the music a little.
That was true. And we also had a lot of trust in our own instrumental ability, if you want to say. So we became a merely instrumental group, which was very beneficial for us. It was a good decision.
Right. So then when you got to write the first album, there's a few instrumental pieces and things, but the real breakthrough came through with House of the King. That was written primarily by Jan Akkerman, but you featured quite heavily on the flute in that song.
Yeah.
How did that sort of come about?
It was born in Mallorca, where we were disqualified during a band contest. And we were playing too long, so we were disqualified by very famous members of a jury, Frank Purcell and Judy Felix and people like that, you know. And after the first evening, Frank Purcell came to us on the beach and he said, "You have to shorten the song you do, because otherwise we have to disqualify you," which we hate, because we love your music and we think you are the best band of all the bands. It was an international thing there. And so the second night, we played exactly the same song, and again, the same length. And then Frank Purcell came again to the beach and he said, "Boys, we have to discuss this very seriously, but you have to shorten up. Otherwise, we have to disqualify you." And so we came in the finale and we played again the same song. It was the ta-da-da, ta-da-da-dee-da-da-da-da. And we played again, instead of 15 minutes, we played 16 and a half minutes. And exactly after 15 minutes, they cut the electricity. So we didn't have any electricity anymore. So the band didn't have any sound anymore. And then I went into the public playing the flute without any electricity, so live. And another member of the group ruined the dressing room. 4 chairs, 2 tables, and really amazing. And then all the friends we had there became suddenly very, they appeared to be member of the Guardia Civil, and they put put us in jail. And we stayed in jail for half a night, and then got bailed out by Tony Hall, the manager of a group called Arrival. He paid money to get us out of jail. And so the rest of the night, we could sleep in our hotel. And in the morning, sitting on the grass on the lane near the hotel, we composed this song called House of the King. And that became our very first hit in Holland. It's still one of our songs we like to play nowadays.
Yeah, it's a really great song. And
Thank
I
you.
think it's quite distinct in its style. It sort of sounds like something that could have been played in, like medieval England or something. I just wonder what sort of are the influences for that sort of song. What were you listening to at the time?
And maybe a little influenced by Jethro Tull. That was actually the only group that I then knew that used a flute in a kind of leading role. There was not so many bands. There were not so many bands that used the flute. They considered probably the flute as a non-rock and roll instrument, which it is, of course.
Is it true that you wrote the song Moving Waves? You started to write that song when you were 8 years old?
I think I was 16, twice 8.
Right, okay.
But, yeah. And we wanted to do it as a band composition, but then I did a demo on it on the piano, and me singing just a sing song on the piano. And then the other members of the group said, we keep it like that. We are not going to play it as a band. It's nice like it is.
So obviously, Focus 2 sort of was the huge breakthrough album internationally. I just want to talk a little bit about Hawkins Pocus, sort of your signature song, I think. Was it your idea to include the yodeling?
No, it was just born during a rehearsal. We rehearsed in a castle, and Jan Akkerman was playing a genius guitar riff, and he was playing that 4 times, and then he played bow, 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 down, 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 down. He stopped, and then there was a drum break of 2 bars, and then I began to yodel and play an accompanying thing on the Hammond organ for the first time of my life.
All right, you'd never yodeled before?
No, never, never, never.
Wow.
And that was became our big breakthrough hit in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. As well, in that song, there's sort of a period where sort of normally a guitar solo or something would be, you sort of have a solo of your own, but just sort of making strange sounds and noises. Was that sort of the same sort of development? Did you come up with that off the cuff in a rehearsal?
Yeah, it started during the rehearsal, and then when we recorded it in the studio, there came more ideas just spontaneously and never prepared.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad showed me we have old repeats of the All Grey Whistle Test on TV over here, and one night they had it on, and you guys were on, and you were doing the yodeling and the noises, and you were shaking your head and so enthralled in it. And my dad looked at it and he said, "Look, this is real music right here."
That's lovely.
It was just such a. I think all of the performances you gave were definitely filled with a sort of energy, and I think every time you used to play it, it sounded faster to me when it was live too.
We kept on playing faster and faster till a ridiculous speed. That's true. And I like the slow version actually a little more.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So many great songs from that period of time. Things like Sylvia and Janice. So I just wanted to ask, were they all created in a similar way of just sort of jamming together and seeing what came?
Oh no, most of the material, at least that I wrote, was done in weeks or months by doing again and again and again and again before I even showed it to other members of the group.
Right.
No, that was only Hocus Pocus that was created during a jam, and the rest was all a very long time thought of and a long time composing. Yeah.
Meno and Udo, were you guys big Focus fans before you joined the band?
My dad had this compilation album, and he had that album. It's the brown cover with like the photo with Hans Clover in there. And I think it's Martijn Dreest. I'm not sure. It was a compilation album, and I remember when I just started out playing guitar kind of when I was like 15, something like that. So when I was around 16, I discovered that album, and I remember playing it repeatedly on the record player and checking out what they were doing. And I really loved Hocus Pocus back then, and I really loved House of the King, the hits and stuff like that. And then later on, I actually got to know the repertoire better when I started out playing together with Thijs in his own band called the Kongsi back then. And then I had to learn some of the other stuff as well. And and I thought it was just brilliant, But I remember repeatedly listening to that compilation album for sure. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
My dad was also. It was one of the first live concerts my dad ever saw was of Focus, and then back then Focus was even playing school parties. I think my dad saw Focus somewhere in Alkmaar, where he was. It's a little town in Holland where he went to school. I think that was where he saw Focus for the first time, and he was telling me about it, that he was so completely blown away by by this experience. He also mentioned that it was so loud. It was the loudest thing he ever heard. But he was also playing a lot of Focus records on vinyl at our home. So my whole youth, I heard Focus music. I loved it also.
What is it like to go from being a fan of Focus and hearing it in your childhood home and then actually being part of Focus?
For me, it was. I never thought. You never think of playing in a band like. For me, it was not obvious to play in a band like that. But I met Thijs once at a party of a studio where I work, and we jammed, and we didn't even speak. We never talked that day.
True. Yeah, we only made music.
Yeah, and then I think a half year later, or maybe a year later or something, I got the call. Thijs called the studio to ask for my number, and then I was standing in the kitchen of the studio owner. So he said, "Yeah, he's standing next to me, so you can give it." So and then it was Thijs. There was Thijs. Hey, Thijs. Hey, yeah, I shall come right to it. You want to play in Focus? I said, yeah, of course I want to play in Focus. You don't have to think about it? No, I don't. I really don't have to think about it. Okay, then you're the new bass player of Focus.
Wow. Just as
That's
easy
how it
as
went.
that.
That was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that was really weird. And then we had a rehearsal, and we went to the UK for the first gig. Yeah, I felt honored, that I could play in a institute like Focus. I mean, it has such an history, and I mean the compositions are so unique, and also the fan base is amazing, you know, all over the world, and they are so faithful and so loving, and they have a very loyal fan base, and probably they know every bass note that should be somewhere in the composition. So I better do my homework, you know.
Yeah.
So but I was embraced from the start, and people it was like a warm bath. People really really embraced me, and I'm very thankful for that also. I mean, this could have turned out into, this could have turned to a disaster, but it was the best thing that ever happened, you know, to me. So
Fantastic.
And what about you, Meno? Did you feel a sort of pressure when you joined the band? There's a
Well,
lot of...
I joined the band before, you know, when I was like 21 or 20. Thijs discovered me. He was looking for a guitar player back then for another band, for his own band.
Right.
And he got tipped by a friend of mine. I think it was Roland, actually, Roland Jacobs, Ruud Jacobs' son. You know, so Thijs got tipped, and you know, he went over, and I was, you know, we met at my parents' house, I remember, but you know, it's a long time ago. And I ended up like joining that band. Back then, it was like a huge thing for me. That was like the first, you know, very big artist to actually, you know, embrace my talent and just like, you know, take me along, you know what I mean? So that was like a huge thing already in itself. Second time around though, that's like about 10 years ago, I replaced Niels, the former guitar player, in England for a couple of shows because he got ill. And I must say, you know, that was with Pierre on drums. Like the reunion in '97 was with Hans Kleuver on drums. This time around was with Pierre, Bobby Jacobs on bass. And I remember it was just, you know, that was just like from the first gig, I was bloody nervous because I hadn't played the repertoire for like years, right? So that was like a huge pressure in itself also already, you know, also. But musically, it was like so great. I just loved it so much from the first second again, you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, me rejoining for those couple of shows back then, that led to me actually rejoining the band, you know what I mean? And that was just back then when I rejoined for like real, I was just like, I'm gonna grab this by the balls, you know? I'm just gonna like do it. And, you know, and you know, you could also sense that the fans, you know, they were already used to like other guitar players in the meantime, you know, and I just got welcomed so much, and it just fell all into place so good.
Right. Okay.
I just really wanted to do it and just play it, and you know, at the same time pay tribute to the heritage, and at the same time get my own voice in a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that just blended perfectly. I'm the most happy guitar player to come out of this country, you know. This is the best band ever, you know. It's true. I really think so.
Yeah. I was gonna say about that actually, about putting your own voice in. It's quite an interesting idea that now you guys joined the band, and now, you know, something like Focus 11, you guys now have, you know, input into a completely new Focus album. What is that like?
It's sometimes intimidating. But I guess because of us playing live so much, not nowadays, but we've been playing live so much, it's really, you know, you just really can count on, you know, the other guys to like just, you know, it's, you already know what the other person's gonna do almost, you know.
Yeah.
Except from like new compositions by Thijs, you know, that's like, those are puzzles that you really need to solve beforehand, you know what I mean? And brilliantly written, you know what I mean? But it's a privilege. I cannot say otherwise. It's a big privilege to, you know, to be part of that, you know, and to be like, you know, in this band for so long, and just given the chance, you know, to get your own, you know, chips in there, you know what I mean?
I mean, Focus 11, I joined, I think, 3 or 4 months before we started recording Focus 11. So the album was practically written. I got one piece on it. That was very nice also, it worked out. We checked some stuff in the studio and that piece worked out. The other stuff just we threw in the bin. I think maybe there's some of Thijs's best stuff on it also. I mean, but what I'm really looking forward to is recording Focus 12, because the pieces Thijs played for us are amazing, and also you can really hear they are tailor-made for what we are now, the band we are now. I think we'll be able to do it this year. Yeah, I hope so.
Nice.
To make 12.
Yeah, Thijs.
Great.
So Thijs, what is that like writing it must be different writing music for a different group of people, but obviously you get to know what people's strengths are and what will suit people best. So what was it like sort of writing pieces for Focus 11 with, new members?
I knew that Udo could play anything in the world because he's a virtuoso. He's a just God-given talent he has. But I could write anything and he plays it like a monster, like a god. He's fantastic. So it's still tonal writing, but it's nearly edgy here and there. So yeah.
Do you think that the Focus sound has evolved over time? And what would you say has sort of changed since, back in '69 to now? What would you say?
Yeah, I think we still develop every day and every second. And I think that Focus becomes better and better, but that's very personal. Maybe other people say that is kind of a constant thing, but I think that there's a lot going on and there's a lot musically happening, which is surprising and very, very beautiful. Yeah.
I really like the fact that we play with sort of two generations, it's Thijs and Pierre and Meno and me. And when we play, it's really amazing, but we don't feel any difference in energy, or it's like we are
generation gapping.
Nothing like that, nothing. So it's almost like we are all 18, and just doing it, and
Right.
Especially touring, when we play night after night, so it rises every night. The level rises and it gets so tight and so strong. That's something I find amazing. And the same goes for the development in writing. I mean, well, you'll have to listen to Focus 12 when it's there, but the compositions, I mean, Thijs as a composer, it's still evolving. And there's some stuff I've never heard of him, and it's so how do you say, rich. It's so rich, and it touches your heart in so many different ways. That's something that keeps on evolving. I'm super happy to be part of that.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. It's like, there's definitely, like, I haven't been in any other band or accompanying any other artist that, is just like still so, like, it's almost a naive thing, like wanting, to grab that attention and from the audience, and at the same time delve very deeply in like the material, and really just every night, just like dive into that kind of source. That's like something you cannot find that like often in like later generation of bands, you know what I mean? And I think that's just totally unique, and I think that's still evolving as well for us as a band. You know, it's always searching for like new ways to do stuff and play stuff, and just, you know, different ways of concentration, or, you know, it's great. You know, I think it still has the same emotional source, but it gets translated more and more in a crystallized way. It's very important that we also record all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Because it is like a huge development. It's amazing. You know, you've got a lot of classic bands. You know, they grab back, you know, on like what they became famous for, and the same sound, and we have to repeat, like, you know, it's all about scoring and scoring and scoring and stuff like that. You know what I mean? In this case, that's definitely not going on. This is, you know, what you hear now on the new Focus albums is really focused in these times, you know, for the most based on what Thijs actually composes.
It's also playing with someone like Pierre. You know, he's a drummer of a certain generation, but for us, guys of around 40, you know, it's amazing to play with Pierre. You know, he has this spiritual sense of playing, this very what do you say, intuitive way of playing, and every night it's different, and the energy is so high. You know, he cannot not. I mean, night after night, he gives everything until he's completely empty. You know, energy wise, and then he still has energy, but. You know, his whole approach is so inspiring for us. You know, he really turns this band into something super special. And every note he plays, you know, you feel he plays the note. You know, it's not just his hand moving. It's all intention. You know, everything's intention, and it makes you play like. You give your best every night because he's giving everything. Yeah?
I was gonna say I was watching some clips of some gigs that you guys have done in the past few years, and it just reminded me of watching, you know, Focus back in the early 70s on the Old Grey Whistle Test. There's still that sort of energy and passion for what you do. I don't think it's you know, left at all. And the music definitely does. I think, Meno, you hit the nail on the head really when you said, you know, Thijs is just coming up with a new way to communicate the same message that he had back in the day. That's definitely how it feels. Even with Focus 11, it definitely feels like this is the same sort of conversation we were having, but in a new sort of sound even.
It has developed a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And it's great that it's been put out there and not, you know, it's not relying on any old tricks, that's what you see a lot of times happening. Or I see it a lot of happening like around us in other bands.
Yeah.
You know, this is actually, you know, the story right now, you know.
Yeah, I saw, Thijs, you said in an interview recently that there's a lot of bands that call themselves progressive rock, where it's more like regressive rock, and they're just sort of calling back to things that they used to do and not really developing, whereas obviously you guys have got the opposite, really.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask each of you sort of, what is your own sort of favorite little slice of what Focus has done?
It was one of the concerts that we did in America was when Gladys Knight announced us in front of a million public on the TV. And then we did Hocus Pocus, and that was, maybe you saw it once.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've seen that gig.
And that was a very lucky moment, I think, for the band. There was a very, everybody played well, and the atmosphere and everything was so loaded with good music and with love and anything you want, you know. So that was one of the high points. And also with the band we are now with, there's so many high points because every night we play so well, if I can say that.
Yeah, I think I must. I also, the first thing that came to mind was also the concert, the thing on TV with last night. I mean, when you see them play there, it's the energy is so together and it's so unique, and they really killed it. Like I totally understand why they set their reputation for decades to come at that moment, because they were announced and they killed it. Everything spot on, and even when you look at it now, it hasn't lost any energy, or it doesn't sound outdated, or it's timeless, and it's spot on. So for me, that's also the.
No, but I agree on that one. I think that's like a how do you call it? Like a very deciding moment there for the band, of course. But for the rest, I just think about all these years of like traveling the world and just doing all those shows. That's for me. That's for me personally. Of course, that's the highlight.
Yeah.
And seeing all those fans and being so moved and in tears sometimes, and totally, the fact that we can actually, be a catalyst for all that.
To see people cry, and it's so intense, and you don't. I never expected that when we went there for the first time. But it's so strong, and it also shows you that it's so universal. This music. I mean, they completely lose themselves. It's beautiful. Yeah, and that's these are things I will also remember for the rest of my life. It's we're still in it, thank God.
So yeah, just on that, actually, I'd just like to ask you all, just as a sort of final note, what is next for Focus?
Live DVD coming up from Rio de Janeiro, which is amazing. Which is one of those concerts where everything falls into place,
Into place, right?
Well, Thijs didn't even have an organ. All sort of things are not optimal, but the concert was so great, and we all played. Yeah, we played well. I can say that. And then the other thing that's coming out is a CD with we play all the Focus numbers in sequence. So Focus 1, Focus 2, Focus 3.
Wow.
Up
until Focus 12. So there's
Right.
one new song coming up, and we played it in the studio as we play it, as we play it now. So.
Right.
And the third one is Focus 12 itself, that we still have to create in the studio.
Right, so that's something, once all this lockdown and everything is opened a little bit.
Well, we also hope to be back in November if everything turns out.
Yeah.
There's an extensive tour through the UK.
Yeah, you guys are stopping off relatively near where I live, actually.
Oh.
I'll be hoping to check out the gig. I think you're in Huddersfield, I think it is.
Yeah, could be, yeah.
In West Yorkshire, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's not too far from where I live. So yeah, I'll definitely try and get there myself.
You should come.
Yeah.
Guest
It'd be great to see. Oh, great! Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
It'd be great to see a Focus gig in person.
Yeah,
It is.
welcome.
Great. Right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to talk to me in this lockdown. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best with Focus 12 and the other two projects you're working on. And I hope that you guys keep very well in this lockdown.
Thank you, Reese.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope to see you in November.
No problem. I will, definitely, I promise.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the interview.
No problem, guys. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Communication Breakdown. Join me next week when I'll be talking to the prog rock band Nectar. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Bye.